I'm a stander. I'm not a sitter. Cool.
Do you mind if I keep seats with just one person? Major sit on the benchless seat, so I'm in the backless seat. All right. So, how many people have been to office hours before? All right, so it's an unstructured activity, an opportunity for me to hear where you are and what the key issues are. We'll spend an hour together. Okay, so what do you talk about? Well, actually, we usually go around and do introductions, right? So who would like to begin? And I usually, because we have people to sign up, so I just have a list so I know who attended. Normal practice, right? You've done it before? Okay. All right. Thank you.
My name is Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas.
I'm a political science major.
Okay.
I'm Lori Winters. I'm in the education study leadership.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ryan Carrion. I'm a double major, journalism and anthropology.
Hi, I'm Maggie Weber from New Paltz, graduated in '76. I'm an alumni and worked here and retired from here, so I'm a UUP. So I'm part of UUP.
Oh, okay.
But I'm here as maybe I'm an outside agitator, some would say. Because I really think that this is important.
Okay.
Michelle Woods, English. Mary Holland, English.
Summer Mormon. I'm an English graduate student and teaching assistant.
Okay.
Sen Oglesby, sociology.
Okay.
John Ryan, mechanical engineering.
Salvatore Di Mauro, Chair, Geography and Environmental Studies.
I'm Samantha. I'm an exchange student from Australia, doing my MBA here.
All right.
I'm Madison. I'm a sociology major.
Shafir Chowdhury from the geology.
Okay.
I'm Ray. You know who I am. I'm an English major.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So who would like to begin?
I'd like to begin, if that's okay. I've prepared a letter for you. I wrote this on Thursday. If the timing sounds off, that's why. Yesterday morning, I woke up and excitedly got ready to present a paper I'm rather proud of on proto-nationalism, genre, form, and characterization in a couple of Middle English Arthurian romances at the 36th Annual Graduate Symposium. I spent the day enjoying the company of compassionate friends, kind and supportive faculty, and proud family members and onlookers. We listened attentively to each other's ideas about the need to engage with pre-modern texts in a postmodern era, the literary critic's role as a cultural ambassador, and the nature of literature and speculative fiction as a force of change in the world. The day prior, a group of students set up an encampment on our campus. They had settled on the quad, spent one night in peace and quiet already, and the administration was scrambling to get them off. Their intentions were clear: financial divestment and transparency. Apprehensions were high as we all watched police, National Guard, and masked civilians assail other college encampments across the country. But surely, I thought, New Paltz would exercise caution, lenience, and care with its students. Wouldn't it? I walked over to the encampment with my keffiyeh. I am an Arab American student, Jordanian and Palestinian, and I was touched by the image of solidarity that these students showcased. Despite heckling and taunts aimed at the demonstrators from a group of a dozen or so rather aggressive students outside the encampment, the demonstrators remained stalwart in their peaceful and nonviolent endeavors, sharing music, literature, history, and information. Surely, I thought, this is the kind of materialization of a compassionate and critical academic praxis we had just spent the day pontificating about at our symposium. But as the dark crept into the sky, so too did a handful of drones, a helicopter with a searchlight, and on the ground what looked to be anywhere from 50 to 200. I'm hearing different and varying responses to this. Armed officers, resplendent in riot gear, and they began to creep onto our campus, my campus as well. I'm a devoted and accomplished graduate student with a 4.0. I am a hardworking and meagerly compensated or appreciated teacher of record. I'm a soon-to-be published creative writer. I'm a somewhat well-conferenced scholar who began that work internationally as an undergrad. I'm the president of our local chapter of the English Honor Society, not to mention a multiple grant and accolade recipient and SUNY Chancellor Award winner. That's just what I do on campus. All of this I accomplished at SUNY New Paltz with the support and guidance of an incredible faculty and what I thought until yesterday was a compassionate and safe campus environment, both physically and socially. Despite never being able to find classes in my own ethnic and cultural heritage, I have yet to encounter a class on Arab or MENA region literature, culture, history, or art. In all the time I have spent here, I have yet to see a single, even modern standard Arabic course offered, although we advertise them online. I felt that the education I was getting was making me a better member of society and that I would, and have, fill the gaps myself at my own financial and temporal expense. After the wanton display of violence and callousness I witnessed last night, I am not so sure. I'm really not sure of anything anymore. The image of students younger than I being thrown to the asphalt and piled on by police, students being maimed by batons and brute force, dogs being loosed on teenagers, professors and elders being ripped and dragged into the dark, guns present and at the ready on our campus in this day and age of mass school shootings and so close to the Kent State Massacre anniversary. It's simply too much for me. Very rarely do I find myself shocked into silence, but I am absolutely speechless. Dr. Wheeler, I was glad to see you become our president. You're an accomplished and I thought compassionate social worker who continued working and publishing probably after you really didn't need to anymore. I had faith you would lead our campus well, and I enjoyed listening to you when you gave various speeches and addresses on campus. When faculty started sending blatantly anti-Arab, Islamophobic, and frankly racist emails about my people, my homeland, and my heritage, I looked away. When the campus sent vaguely worded comments about the Israel-Hamas war and refused to ever use the word Palestinian or Palestine or write out the daily growing Arab death toll, I looked away. We moved from 10,000 to 20,000 to well past 30,000 dead Palestinians, whose average age is 5, by the way, without a peep from administration. The administration even welcomed and hosted IOF soldiers on our campus after the highest court in the world, the ICJ, found that they were tangibly committing a genocide. And a massive outpouring of campus, parental, and community responses detailed how this event made particular demographics of marginalized students, myself included, feel deeply unsafe and unwelcome on campus and called for you to address the situation. I watched as students were forced off the green when they tried to have a peaceful event on campus last week. From outward appearances, it looked like they were complying with every guideline, handbook, and code of conduct available. I watched yesterday as they removed the tents and sat peacefully on their own campus lawn, and police in armor who moments ago had walked in through the dorms in military formation, beating their chests in rhythm with their batons, mowed them down and tore them apart. I watched a bulldozer plow over the lawn to collect up their belongings and throw them away in the trash like so much rubbish. Is this a campus you want to curate? This is not the campus I want to sign my name to. I am ashamed that my hard work reflects on SUNY New Paltz, which, as an institution, has never once seemed interested in uplifting my cultural and ethnic heritage or bothered to acknowledge the deep grief, pain, and exhaustion we, the Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian student body, have spent the last 6 months facing. The images I have seen on my phone this year are worse than any slasher film could have possibly dreamt up. I will not list them for you here, but it is safe to say that the genocide is well documented, and last night Israel began invading Rafah. I am tired, Dr. Wheeler. We are tired. I have spent the last 6 months afraid because I am an Arab, and we are being targeted left and right with all manner of physical, emotional, and institutional violence and censorship. Yesterday at the graduate symposium, our provost, Mr. McClure, visited us presenters to congratulate us on our accomplishments, and I saw his eyes grow a little darker and his smile falter when he saw my keffiyeh, an inheritance from my dead jiddo, draped over my shoulders. We will not be made to be afraid, unwelcome, and unsafe at our own university, nor will I continue working here if my accolades will only work to uplift a place that has no interest in us, our diverse backgrounds, or our well-being. What I saw last night was simply unacceptable. People have been throwing the word shame around a lot lately. That was truly shameful. The utter waste of resources, money, time, and energy that went into that operation is absurd. The night prior, demonstrators were already falling asleep under the stars and settling down for the night by 9 or 10 p.m. Yesterday, the entire campus was kept awake, and students were locked in their own dorm buildings, a clear safety and fire hazard, not to mention a hindrance to their freedoms, until well past 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. As the police advanced like a wave and bludgeoned, tackled, and loosed dogs on anyone not running, and even some who were. All of this during finals, and you still asked us all to conduct business as usual the next day. I reject that paradigm. I am so saddened by what I saw happen yesterday. I have authored a number of excuses for our university myself. I have excused a marked lack of investment in Arab and MENA region academia. I have excused doling out my own very limited funds to Arabic literature and to learn Arabic language. I have excused and overlooked emails from tenured and comfortable faculty members who perpetuated the dissemination of misinformation and made blatantly and overtly racist comments about Arabs, Muslims, and Palestinians in faculty-wide email servers without a peep of administrative intervention or repercussion. I have even excused targeted harassment from our own administration, which neither the HRDI nor the provost, the dean of liberal arts and sciences, or you bothered to acknowledge. How am I to excuse this? This has shaken me to my core. I am rethinking the entire course of my adult life's work. I feel rudderless and at sea, and where in the past I felt I could come here to our campus, to our faculty, to our admin for guidance, I find nothing but a dark, bulldozed quad where the specter of martial law will forever haunt my memory. I feel I am in an absurdist Ionesco play and forgot my lines. I suppose contextually that would make perfect sense, as Rhinoceros and Exit the King are meant to mirror the absurdity of fascism. Will this be your legacy? The future generation's bulldozed concern for others and hopes for a better future via education and activism? There's always time to change, to rise above, to lead, and you, at this very moment, are standing at a crossroads that history will remember. I am here today afraid. God, am I afraid. I will soon be applying for PhD programs. Academia is my life, and I love it. I am afraid like we all were Thursday night, but I am here to remind you that there is always another way. There is always another way. I ask you to find it. Thank you.
Do you want an immediate response or reaction? Or?
You don't have to. You can write me a letter if you'd like, or you can respond if you'd like.
But I want to respond to the last part in particular. You see, I've been taking notes because there's a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling there that I can't undo at all. But when you said there's always time to change and lead, and you challenged me, you said that you were afraid and that your life is in academia, and you put something very powerfully out there about your future. Those are the things that, in terms of what happens next, those are profound for me. Not that anything else wasn't. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a copy for you.
I would love it.
You're welcome to have my link as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a copy that I would like to share with you. The immediate demand is amnesty for all students.
Okay.
Thank you. And there are 3 questions to you.
Did you want to highlight? I mean, I think
it's in the back. You'll see them. There are 90 signatures. They range from School of Education to LANS to School of Science and Engineering. Thank you.
I have a letter representing alumni. A petition came out earlier today. We're asking for 3 things. You could check it out on there. There's also some information you should really check out about the student handbook and the excuses you guys used to present action. I don't want to read it out because that would be putting you very much on the spot, but I appreciate you taking my letter.
I have one question.
Hold on, I just want to make sure. Yes.
So I reached out to you directly and also to Mr. Michael Patterson directly, and I copied you on those 2 emails, but I did not get any response from either from you or from the provost or from Michael Patterson. I don't want to use the fact stuff listserv to make my point. I try to go directly, but I did not get a response from you, and I would like to find out why.
I think in yours you were asking for content on how to address these critical questions.
But before that, I requested Mr. Michael Patterson to meet with the parents of the Muslim students, and he did not respond because he needed to know how Muslim students feel, how I feel. I wrote yesterday to the fact staff, ultimately because I wanted to know others, how I feel. I am afraid of saying the wrong thing. If I say something, it will be blamed on my faith rather than me. Then it will be Muslims are all terrorists. And that's what I am hearing since 9/11 especially. And my son was 6 months old. My son was called, "You are a terrorist," in his high school. And he did not tell me. And I found out not very long ago. Like I asked him, "Why didn't you tell me?" He don't know, "Baba, you will be upset." My son was discriminated by the police in such a manner in front of me. When I went to the police stations to discuss about a car accident with my son, the police officer who spoke with me never looked at my son. He rarely looked at me. That kind of racism. I sold my house from Saugadis after living 16 years and came here with my family. These are all racist police officers, I'm telling you right now.
I served as one of only 2 EMTs at the encampment. I have a letter that I'd like to read to you. And I also sent this to Student Association, by the way.
Can you talk a little louder if you can, please?
I served as one of only 2 EMTs in the Gaza Solidarity encampment. I was in the center when police raided. I would like to provide my first-hand account of what happened that night. SUNY New Paltz administration approached our encampment at 3 p.m. on Thursday. They conveyed to us that we would have to take our tents down per campus policies by 7 p.m., or that we would face repercussions, but they did not specify what when we inquired. We complied with admin's request to take down the tents. Despite that, admin came back and said we needed to disperse by 9 p.m. or we would be forcefully removed. We had 4 simple demands: disclose, divest, disengage, and drop the charges. The fear that I felt because our campus was further being militarized cannot be described in words. It was terrifying. As it became dark, we received news that state troopers were bringing K-9 units and that there were over 70 state troopers on their way. The other EMT and I sat in front of the medical table and we cried. I was afraid of what they would do to us all. I was afraid that we would run out of resources to help people. I was afraid that they would kill one of my friends. As we were singing Solidarity Forever, more than 70 state troopers in riot gear raided our encampment with K-9 units, batons, and rubber bullets. They beat and dragged peaceful and unarmed students out of the human chain. About an hour later, the chain was broken on one side. I was in the center, initially protected by those in the human chain, but I was now exposed to the police. The other EMT and I stayed for as long as we could in the center before police began coming towards us. We then decided that because we were the only 2 EMTs, it would be best if we leave the center of the circle so we don't get enclosed by police and are available to help people. We ripped our reflective vests off as fast as we could and turned our headlights off. We inched our way behind a tree and slowly moved out of the center. We screamed as police continued to drag and beat our friends. These police officers acted like monsters. We are unarmed students on a public college lawn which we paid to go to, and they acted as beasts with weapons. They're supposed to protect us, yet when we were faced with an aggressive counter-protester earlier that day, police stood and watched and did not intervene. The police encounters were brutal. Students were dragged by police officers, some were mauled by the dogs, some were sexually assaulted, some were kicked in the face, some were beat with batons in ways which I never would have imagined and saw for the first time that night in person. Every single person in the human chain was arrested. Even bystanders were arrested. And I watched with my very own 2 eyes the way people of color were being treated much more brutally than white people. SUNY New Paltz claims that they don't tolerate Islamophobia, yet people were directly and specifically asked by police officers if they were Muslim. So I ask, why the singling out? We were driven out by police charging at us with their dogs around 2 a.m. After most people dispersed, police officers slammed bystanders against the brick walls of the nearby dorms. I managed to get away and went back to my dorm to try to locate some of my friends who were arrested. Only a little while after, we were called back by a friend because an elderly woman was injured. An 80-year-old woman was part of the human chain. Police held her down and she fell unconscious. When we got there, the police, as expected, did not let us near her. They were still holding her down when we got there. We sat on the curb and watched as police photographed and loaded our friends into vans one by one. Police approached us, asked if we lived on campus, and told us to go back to our dorms. Like I said, this is a public campus which we pay to be at. I questioned the officer with that statement, and 2 police officers began coming closer to me. One of them then asked that we go to the other side of the road. This was all occurring behind the health center. We went to the other side of the road and chose to remain. We screamed each other's names and yelled, "I love you," as our friends were cuffed and loaded into the vans, one by one. More people were arrested in one sweep at SUNY New Paltz that night than were arrested at Columbia. Your students filled up 7 precincts in upstate New York. We waited for some of our friends to be released and get back because they did not receive any medical attention while in police custody, despite expressing their pain. The other EMT and I treated one immediately after he was released, around 4 a.m. The next few days after, I was made aware of more injuries, such as possible internal bleeding, dog attacks, concussions, and who knows what else. We arranged for them to immediately be taken to the hospital. The encampment site was bulldozed that night, and everyone's belongings were thrown in a dumpster on campus. However, police were guarding the dumpsters the day after, not allowing anyone to search them or get their things. I'm disgusted that my school did this to us. SUNY New Paltz preaches that, and I got this from your website, we are a faculty and campus community dedicated to the construction of a vibrant, intellectual, creative public forum, which reflects and celebrates the diversity of our society and encourages and supports active participation in scholarly and artistic activity. But Thursday night, it was SUNY New Paltz itself that subjected its vibrant, intellectual, creative, diverse, active, and peacefully protesting students to the American epidemic of police brutality.
Thank you.
And I was shoved by a police officer who was almost, I think, 6.5 feet tall. I'm guessing it will be 200 pounds. And he shoved me in such a way.
I thought you said shot.
Shoved, not shoved, shoved.
Shoved.
Yeah, SHOVED. And fortunately, I was able to balance myself. Otherwise, I would have been injured significantly, head injury. And
Yeah.
I was on the walkway, paved walkway.
I was one of every trans student I know who was groped by police that night. I was held to the ground, and the police officer said sexually charged things in my ear as he held me on the ground. Later on, we were all frisked, even though we told them we did not consent to do that. We were informed by police that we did not get to consent.
let me just say, my name is Michelle Riddell. I was one of the few outside agitators who was actually asked by the students just to be there to have a community member here. And I'm a New Paltz resident for like 35 years. I've been here, you know, my kids grew up here, I worked here, I still work for the New Paltz School District. My friend, who is 82 years old, Margaret Newman, was, she was sitting at a picnic table, and the police pulled the picnic table, almost knocked her to the ground. I screamed, and they at least stopped. Later, I said, she's 82, leave her alone. So they knew. And then she linked arms again with us because we were here in solidarity. We wanted to be witnesses, but more than witnesses, part of the heart, part of the American system of civil disobedience. And we had no idea something so brutal would occur. She was then, when the police took her, they didn't take her, they dragged her. It was, and I saw them flip her over like a sack of potatoes. And she, afterwards she fainted. And she's a warrior, so she goes, oh, it's okay. But she fainted and she needed to be taken to the hospital overnight. And the brutality was just incredible. What's the big deal? All we're talking about is, you know, just tell what war machines you're investing in and are investing in you. And it wasn't that big a deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but we want you to divest, like people have done for many times, to show that we are against genocide, whether it's the Arabs killing the Jews or the Jews killing the Arabs, whatever, the Muslims, who cares? I mean, I care. But it's the war machine. It's this big war machine, and the United States has the biggest military in the world. And we see it right here. My God, the excessive, insane force was ridiculous. So when they talk about outside agitators, me and Karma, my dog, walked around and we saw all the students, and they were all students, maybe a few that weren't students. And I want you to know, we're the outside agitators. And we're not too agitated. I mean, we're really agitated, but we weren't agitating. We were being as peaceful as possible.
We ranked the 5th highest, to my knowledge, the 5th highest arrest rate in the country so far. 4th? Mm-hmm. That's insane considering our relative size, our student body size, the size of the encampment. Considering the size of other encampments and other universities and student bodies, it is absurd. Excessive is the word of the week. It was extremely excessive. It was violently excessive. It was cruel. It was unnecessary. It was absurd. And the arrest rate was absolutely excessive.
So the one question that pops in my head all the time is, we claim that we are a civilized nation, and then we make weapons and then sell those. What kind of civilization does that? If I claim I'm a civilized person, I work for peace, I work for democracy, all those things, and then I make weapons and then sell them and make money. And then that weapon is, am I making those to help people or kill people? What is the purpose of the women? What is the purpose of that gun? Just to kill people, nothing else.
To make another point about numbers, that's 2% of our student population that was arrested that night. That is 2% of all the students that go to your college had this happen to them.
Can I ask a question? Can I add a few pieces of evidence?
Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is somebody?
Let me go after
Can't see. Okay.
I came here for a different meeting with President Wheeler, but obviously Mrs. stumbled in at the wrong moment, so I'm gonna leave until everyone leaves.
Can I ask a question? from a foreign perspective, I'm from Australia. I'm not saying we're doing any better, and I'm here to understand. Please don't tell me, I don't want to get deported. What was the best case scenario? I won't pretend to understand. I don't know the history of the campus. I don't know the in-depth history of the country. But from what I've seen on social media and from the emails I'm getting, which is two very different perspectives, by the way, in regards to numbers and what happened on the night, what in your opinion was the best outcome in the decisions that have been made leading up to this? What were you hoping for? Was your hand forced by external forces? Was like from the media, state troopers don't look like the most fun bunch, and that's coming from someone from the Asian perspective post-COVID. So I just want to know what you were hoping for, essentially, because I don't think you're a bad person. I think a lot of things are out of your hands. I know that there's a wider issue that is forced upon you. You don't control the American government. I understand that. Just in this particular scenario, what were you hoping for?
I think there were at least 4 things that I was hoping for on the first. The one is that the encampment would come down and disperse. Number 2 is that we would engage in student dialogue. Number 3, that we would have the ability to review, there was a call for transparency to make sure that we were able to respect all the foils. Those are the requests for information. I'd approved a number of those and make sure those are moving forward. And then on the divestment component, to be able to take the concerns of students forward. Because to your point, there are elements of our finances that we don't control on the campus, and making sure that those issues were made known to the larger body. Yes. Those were the desire, that there'd be no arrest and no harm. Okay. That's where it started, in terms of the list of things that I and the team had hoped on the first would occur.
Okay. I have a question with that. So if there was a hope of no arrest, why not have the people that came before come again? Like if the people that came and extended it to 9 p.m., instead of having the police come, why not have them come again and ask us, hey, since you took the tents down, is it possible you guys could disperse? Instead of immediately calling the police. I'm very confused on that part.
So within the first hour, I actually came and said pretty much that please take the tents down and disperse.
Right.
Right? I was there. I think it ended up on the news. And that I want to then have discussion.
Right.
That was my request, and I was told to leave. And so then the team members came back and presented an opportunity that said, amnesty was on the table, that I think that was one of the requests, and that a discussion and a meeting would be established. And they said, I think it was reported to me that the negotiators said, put this in writing, and it was put in writing. And that was put in writing shortly after the 3 o'clock on the 2nd. Right. And then that's when they came back and they said, absolutely, let's give a time for it to disperse, because that's what it was. It was break the tents down and disperse, or to remove the items, and then it was extended to 9. And at that point, I did make the decision to move in, but it was not a front line of riot police. It was a succession of activities that were supposed to have occurred.
Like what? What were they?
UPD was the first.
But UPD wasn't even there. It was a combination of them.
Right. It was sheriffs, state troopers, New Paltz Town Police. I don't know if UPD was there. It was excessive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I would like to video of this happened. President Wheeler, I would like to ask why you were not there. Why were you not there to see what actually happened and what you called to happen on our campus?
The reason I was not physically there was because I was asked not to be there and to be on call to come to campus.
Have you reviewed all the evidence that people have been trying to provide? Have you looked at the videos?
I absolutely have. I have spent the entire weekend going through emails. I was privy to the content, the discussion where there was a concern that someone had taken the videos down. When I saw that, I got in touch with IT to ask them, was there anything valid in that? And it was and I watched the communication. IT got in touch and explained the process to make sure that those videos weren't.
So you've watched these videos and you've seen the level of brutality. You know that the things that we're saying, and that's only a small subset of things that actually happen. Have you witnessed and experienced haven't felt compelled to say to your community, I'm sorry that this happened to you. You just said to us, there was a succession of police activities that were supposed to happen. Were supposed to happen implies that things did not go as you planned for them to go. And you were not there to see how they went or to control how they went. Once you made that call, you were out of control of what happened, and those of us who were there felt the reality. EMTs, it was really sweet that they had them. We were out of control of everything. Once those forces came, we were at the mercy of all of those people in riot gear with batons and guns and tear gas and dogs that were barking and lunging at us.
And crying for your protection.
People were screaming.
Who
we
were
were
you
terrified.
protecting?
And nobody could stop that. And you unloosed that on us. And you've now seen that. And I think a lot of the rage coming from your community members is we don't see any care coming from the person who caused this to happen to us. And if you believe our accounts and you believe that we were truly traumatized and we're not being histrionic, we need to hear that from you. And we need to hear how this is never going to happen again. And nobody's heard a peep like that. And the other thing I want to say in response to what Ray said is that my son was arrested that night. He was not a New Paltz student, but he spent his entire life here. He's the chair of the New Paltz Democrats. He is very connected to the students in the community. And he stayed in solidarity. He is a white man. He was treated with total respect and tenderness. The cops were joking with him. They were kind to him. These are his words. Nobody groped him. Nobody sexually assaulted him. He was never frisked. He was never hurt. And I know that because he told me, and I picked him up from the police station, and he's Sobis, by the way.
Sobis.
They took these kids everywhere. So that's what happened to my white cis son. That disgusts me. And I want, not what happened to him, but you understand what I'm saying. And I want you to understand that when you call these cops, you are unleashing racism and sexism and all kinds of hatred on our campus to particular bodies. Particular bodies. And I know that is not what you, Darrel Wheeler, want to be responsible for.
I want to emphasize that because I was a political science major here years ago, and I saw what happened as reinforcing the Islamophobia that people should feel. And it is clear that this university, over the long period of time, has made it very, very hard for the opinions and the thoughts and the needs of students who are Muslim. I took a course called Politics of Israel. It was a wonderful class. It was taught by a Lebanese doctor. And I was fascinated with that class, kept that interest. Subsequently to that, I met the professor who was the chair of that department years later, asking me, who did I take? I told him I took this person, that person. He says, well, you didn't have us? I said, no, I had Dr. Hafar. Dr. Ahmed Hafar, Shirley Hafar also taught there. And you know what he told me? I wish I had it on tape. He told me, oh, we got rid of them. We got rid of them. Subsequent to that, students were trying to get a film called 5 Broken Cameras. Write it down, it's a wonderful film. They were trying to get that film on campus. They fought and fought and fought. It was an Oscar-nominated documentary about a man in Gaza who had bought a camera when his child was born and wanted to document it. 5 Broken Cameras tells you what happened to that man. Students wanted it, and they had a really, really hard time getting this on campus. I've seen it years in and years out, and here it is again. What you did represented sanctifying Islamophobia.
Where are all the Arab professors?
Right. I would like to add on to that. I feel like the issue with the counter protester, where is their excuse me, I'm trying to losing the word, but where is their
accountability?
Yes.
Exactly. Why are they not getting in trouble? Every single person that was a student here that got arrested got a Maxient letter. for something in 3 weeks' time. So anything could happen to them in these 3 weeks where it amplifies the fact that they're going to get suspended or expelled. Where was that for the counter protesters? When the IOF members came here, the cops were called for the people that protested. And the fact that we were emailed saying that we were counter protesters, we weren't even given a name, but yet the people who were hosting the IOF members were called the Jewish Student Union. Students Supporting Israel is not the Jewish Student Union. And the fact that
It's not a group that is acknowledged by the campus, to my knowledge.
They're not a club.
They're an unsanctioned group, just as.
And
right.
Most importantly, they are accused of killing innocent people.
Exactly. They're literal war criminals. They're literal war criminals that you
According to the ICJ.
And
not according to public opinion.
Right. According to what?
The ICJ, the International Court of Justice.
I looked it up yesterday. Israel has violated 28 resolutions of the Geneva Convention. For an example, Iraq violated 2, and they were basically essentially decimated by the United States. Israel has violated more than, I want to say 12 times the amount of Iraq. Nothing has happened to them. The U.S. has continued to fund this, and I feel like this school is also inherently funding this genocide by allowing this vernacular to happen on this campus, by saying that the students supporting Israel is part of the Jewish Student Union, puts them in this bubble of protectiveness that if we insult them as a club, we are insulting the Jewish Student Union, and therefore we are anti-Semitic. I came to your last office hours, and not to talk crap or anything about those ladies, but the fact that they were able to talk about anti-Semitism that was occurring on this campus, but what they were talking about was things that were anonymously on an app that has nothing to do with this campus, and they were able to amplify this whole thing about it. But yet when we're here peacefully protesting at the encampment, there was a medical tent, there was a supply tent, there was a free library, there was a teach-in, there were so many insightful, thoughtful things to amplify what this school is about, knowledge. What has the SSI done for this community? You know what I mean? And they were given such amnesty, they were given such uplifting from this school that New Paltz Students for Palestine has not gotten at all. And
the counter demonstrators made me feel physically unsafe.
Right.
Here at the encampment, outside of the encampment on Thursday night, I stayed. I attended after the graduate symposium. I walked over to the encampment. The counter demonstrators that were outside of the encampment, trying to I don't know what they were trying to do, incite violence. They made me, as an Arab body, feel physically unsafe.
I want to talk a little bit about this use of protection for Jewish students. I was one of many Jewish students who were arrested on that night. And Wheeler, I think you'd recognize me. I was also a member of the negotiation team where we did not tell you to leave. We invited you to get us a real answer and to come back. You met with us exactly one time before you called the cops on us. We would have loved to have a negotiation with you. I was so excited to have a negotiation with you to figure out how we were going to get this done. Because I understand you have to go up to the Board of Trustees. We know that. We know how it is. We wanted you to 4 hours. You called the cops on us. So I don't want to hear we wanted to negotiate thing. But as a Jewish student, you see this bruise on my arm? This came from when the cops dragged a baton in between me and my friend and pried me off of my friend. After I was on the ground, I was sexually harassed by the police officer verbally and groped by police afterwards because I am transgender. I am one of many Jewish students who were there who had a very similar experience. I do not want to hear about Jewish safety because SSI does not provide Jewish safety because I am Jewish and I was unsafe and I will continue to be unsafe. You also promoted the Anti-Defamation League's anti-Semitism report card. The Anti-Defamation League is one of the many organizations that is reinforcing a dangerous conflation in our country, which is that anti-Zionism is the same as anti-Semitism when it is not. The state of Israel is not is not acting in the will of the Jewish people. And if it was, I wouldn't have gotten arrested that night. Very, very simply.
Maggie has a nasty bruise too.
So
lots of people are hurt.
I'd like to make a comment as a Muslim now. So this last chairs meeting in the School of Science and Engineering, we call it leadership meeting, and I'm the director of the environmental science program. So I get invited to that meeting, and I asked my colleagues, because I know there are some Christian in Palestine and especially in Gaza, but assume that 95% of people in Gaza is Christian. Do you think this would have happened? Yeah, like the thing that is happening in Gaza now. Do you think that would have happened if 95% people in Gaza is Christian?
It's impossible to think that that would have happened.
Because we can see the example in Ukraine, and we can see the reaction. We can see the double standard. And nobody talks about it. Nobody. How do I feel as a Muslim?
Thank you for talking about it.
I come from a family of Christian, Palestinian, and Jordanian Arabs, so we're a minority and we exist.
Super
I wake up every morning and I hear 10, 20, 30, children, are killed. What's going on? And nobody speaks up. There are 320 million people in this country, and they know that their taxpayer money is going there, but they don't speak up. They think this is normal. Do they have a soul?
I wanted to add a little bit to what Shafir was saying. I think after we've been for the last 4 months, I think we've been trying to find out how we can speak about Israel's atrocities and oppression of Gaza in a way that doesn't violate Title VI guidelines. And we've been asking you over and over again to your office, can you help us define what is anti-Semitism that will still give us room to be able to have conversations with our students around these issues? There's been complete silence. And when you did reach out back, you wanted to have a personal conversation when what we wanted was a public forum around Title VI. And we never received any kind of firm guidelines. And it makes us, so to me, when you don't define what anti-Semitism is, you are automatically being Islamophobic, because we need to know where the boundaries are in order to be able to have a conversation that is, based in justice and in rationality.
And I told my colleagues that day that I am worried about my kids, because if this can happen to Muslims in Gaza, this can happen to Muslims in this country.
And I have had 2 boys also who grew up in New Paltz, and similar. We are not even like Muslims family-wise, but like they've been called after 9/11. They were called Osama bin Ladens around here. So many of us, brown-skinned South Asians, face very similar situations, and it's all mostly because of Islamophobia.
Do you acknowledge that there's a genocide happening in Gaza?
I certainly, as Darrel, say that there definitely is something happening, like killing people, and we call it a genocide. There are genocidal behaviors occurring against the people.
What people? The people in
Palestinian people, the people in Gaza. I think the numbers, nobody could refute the numbers and the atrocities. I think when I'm listening, and I'm happy I'm actually listening, it is difficult to sit here and listen and try to integrate it in a way that I could respond in the immediate.
I think you're a coward.
That's really impossible.
I think you should respond, and I think you should say that there is a genocide.
Sitting here, not giving a statement, not publicly saying anything. Walking by that quad makes my hands physically shake. I get quiet when I walk by that quad. I can't stop thinking about what happened that night. I wasn't even part of the encampment. I was around it, just recording what the police did. I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm having trouble focusing in class. I haven't even gone to half of my classes. And here you are talking about campus safety. You're talking about student safety. You haven't made a single statement. You're sitting here in the comfort of this little office hours saying, yeah, that was probably a bad thing, the police brutality, but you won't publicly say, this was awful, what I did.
These kids need trauma counseling, all of them.
The PCC has done
They
nothing.
need justice.
The PCC has done absolutely nothing. If it was the smallest little thing ever, the PCC would be the first people to email us asking us if we needed help. The PCC have been absolutely quiet about this whole situation when this has traumatized more than half of the students here. Even if the people that didn't get arrested, there were people in Bliss watching. There were people in Scudder, Capon. Like, they were just watching the police literally on their campus attacking people that they knew. Watching people, like when you're watching this chain get broken and you're seeing your friends be beaten, that is traumatic.
Dogs attacking.
Dogs attacking, like that. Dogs have like stuff that can literally infect you. Like now you're worried about your friend's safety if something could happen to them in the next couple weeks, next couple months, and you get a text, oh, you know, school is same as normal. Continue on your day. Like, how are you supposed to continue on your day? And I'm really glad that so many clubs have provided a statement before you have. That really confuses me. So many clubs were able to provide a statement a day after the situation happened, or even during the situation. So many clubs posted that they were there in the encampment. So many clubs canceled their own events. Student Association canceled Springfest. You still haven't done anything in response to this whole situation. I'm just very confused and upset right now. Like, how is it that we as students were able to be there for each other, but the administration can't even say anything?
So, two things. And it may not be sufficient, but there were communications done on the 1st and the 2nd.
To who?
They went out to students. They went out to ALFAC.
To which students?
To the ALFAC students.
I didn't get anything. Did you guys get anything?
So there were things that went out to the community.
No,
so
there
weren't. We can clarify that.
Where are the things from you? You're
Those
the
are
one
from-
who called
are
those
from me.
cops.
Has anybody seen any communication?
before.
No, there was
No
the first.
communication that actively condemned the actions of the
Well,
police
are you
or the
saying-
violence.
I mean, we got
Providing
things from
those
your office before the police brutality. We haven't got anything after, except a kind of.
I have to go and check because we sent something out.
You said
on the
everything
first.
was normal the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right, you did. Someone sent the text saying, "Oh yes, class
And
is
it wouldn't be a
completely fine.
text.
Class is on session after we watched our friends get beaten and dragged."
Yeah, there was a text that.
Thank you for that.
There was an email on May 1st. I have it right
Yeah.
here.
May 1st was before.
Yeah, May 1st.
But there should have been one
sure
that-
that's out. The last one that I-
The statement you gave was saying that everything was normal. Does this look normal to you?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so then say that it's not normal.
There is nothing, when you say normal, after the 1st and then the night of the 2nd, people are hurt,
Yes.
okay? When we talk about the Psychological Counseling Center, I know I've seen at least 2 communications from the PCC. It might not have gone to students, but I know it went to faculty.
I saw one. Why did
Encourage
it
it.
not get to go to students?
Because
Half the
I have
faculty
to
were
follow
even
up on that because it was a directive to the counseling center to reach out. So to your point, I have to find out what that next level was. But I know that I actually directed the team to reach out to make sure that the services were available.
Why don't
But
you
I'm
reach
he-
out yourself?
Are vague threats of punishing students useful for maintaining their mental health?
You reached out with the vague threats, but you won't reach out to directly.
Yeah, you reached out with 2.
From Friday after the event, and it basically says this thing happened and it was sad, and I want to reemphasize things I said before, and they're basically all policies are in place and will be enforced. It's basically still enforcing policy. I think what we're saying is we've not seen a statement from you acknowledging, part of healing from trauma is having people acknowledge that it's real. And I think you have an entire community of people feeling like we're being gaslighted. And I think that gets redoubled when you see statements like Juan Figueroa's that went out yesterday, absolutely deplorably misrepresenting what because he was in charge that night, troops did on this campus. That statement is reprehensible. It mentions one officer who was hurt and then uses passive voice to say a civilian was injured. That civilian went to the hospital with a concussion, a head injury, and got staples.
That was also wrong. There are there are 2 people who were hospitalized that night that I'm aware of. There are also 2 other people who had to go to the hospital the day following. One student who is just a bystander who was shoved so hard by police into her dorm building that she has a bone contusion.
So part of what's happening is the reality of what was experienced on this campus, what we experienced, is not being portrayed in the media. And as long as you are silent about it yourself, we all feel like you're acknowledging that what happened to us happened, not to mention that you called it down upon us. I feel like that's what we're asking you to do, and the message you sent Friday does not do that.
My other question is, I'm curious about what channels you would have to go through to approve offering mental health support to people who have been deeply traumatized, and what channels you didn't have to go through to send a message threatening students academically and putting them on academic probation post-traumatic arrest and brutality. Who?
I feel like the only thing you said that was the Maxian letter, and that was very quick, which is very weird to me.
Why is sending a threat so much more easier than making a statement saying that police brutality against your own students?
I'm curious. I'm really curious about what exact channels.
I would like to know if the students who have obviously dedicated themselves to what I find to be a just cause, I mean humanity, right? Like lives, are they going to be academically protected?
So, to the Maxian letter, the letter was sent out through the conduct disorder process, and there was a second letter that was sent out to individuals. The content of those letters is really about making sure that the full range from what you call amnesty right through is on the table. That is what every individual case has to be reviewed. It's not my intent. Huh?
But that doesn't make sense to me. Like if I'm just a bystander and I was recording as the people in the circle asked me to do and I'm arrested, why am I in trouble? I was standing.
It should only have gone out to people who were arrested.
Exactly,
Okay.
and bystanders were arrested. Okay. People who were standing there, they literally chased people. A black student went to hand a person water, they ripped his shirt in half. They tried to grab him and he ran and they literally ripped his shirt in half. Like, if he was to be arrested, what would he be arrested for? Feeding someone water on a public space that he pays for?
There were a lot of students who weren't even directly involved in what was going on, who were arrested and are now facing academic penalties. And honestly, the way I feel about it is, regardless of whether or not they were involved in this non-violent encampment, I think that these students should have a right to their education and to their future. This is a state school, you know, we're working class folks. We deserve to get that education. We deserve to go on regardless of, you know, whether or not we disagree about Israel's committing a genocide or not, right?
And I want to say, as a faculty member in the humanities, that, you know, I feel somewhat responsible because I teach my students to do what they did. I teach them to understand their values, to empathize with suffering in the world, and to stand up for what they believe in. I teach them to do that. They did it. They did it beautifully. They did it non-violently. They did it respectfully. They did it without hate speech, and they got arrested brutally for it. And I don't know what to say to them now. Stop doing it. I'm not going to tell them to stop doing it.
Yeah. They need to get credit, like everybody should get 3 credits at least for doing this. I'm serious. Civic duty.
Yeah.
This is our duty.
President Wheeler, I have to say something about my colleagues also. There are some statements that are made by my colleagues when I see that, and I would like to ask a question to them. The kid that was born after October 7th, and those kids are also being torn apart by bombs. And how do they justify that? And those emails supporting Israel.
And collective punishment has been called, you know, crime against humanity by all courts in the world.
So I do have, this is an hourly schedule to get to my next meeting, but I would like a list of some number of people in this space who would be willing to continue this dialogue. Because there are things here that are really global that would be hard for me to fix.
President Wheeler.
Answer about an apology right now.
Yes,
An
yes.
apology is absolutely on the table.
Not on the table.
No,
Why
it
is it on
is.
the
It is.
table and
I
not done?
promise you,
Today.
because yes, today.
And student protection.
That's all.
Protect your students.
Please. It speaks to exactly what you were saying, that hearing from me. So this morning, there was a meeting where, again, I'm hearing, coming here could have been a canceled event, but I don't want to cancel it. I need to hear precisely what the pain is.
Was this the first
If there is to be dialogue, it has to be first everybody being amnestied. Otherwise, there's no grounds for dialogue if people are under threat.
President Wheeler, we've done some.
You've heard of bystanders being arrested at the event?
No, it is not the first that I've heard,
So
and I'm checking.
You've heard of bystanders being arrested,
Yes.
and you just sat there and said, all right, let's send an email saying classes are on.
President Wheeler, we've done some work for you, and we have given you a list of things that you can do to make this right. We honestly, quite frankly, do not care for what you think you can do to make this right. Here, we, the students, have assembled here, and faculty, and community members to tell you exactly what you can do to make it right. Nothing less, nothing more. No named list of students who can then be doxxed and harassed. No, none of that. This, what we are about to tell you, is what you can do to make it right. And anything short of it is not making it right. It will be abundantly clear to us that you do not care about making it right.
We make these demands as students affected by President Wheeler's decision to harm his student body, a student body who was peacefully protesting the ongoing genocide and SUNY's investment in companies violating humanitarian law and supporting this genocide. 1. The SUNY Board of Trustees and the New Paltz Foundation will divest from Israel. Wheeler will secure a meeting for student representatives with these organizations before graduation, or a vote of no confidence will be called by the Student Association and the United Union Professions. Refusing to do this shows his inability to accommodate to his student population and continues his unwillingness to negotiate. 2. Wheeler will grant complete amnesty for the students involved in the encampment due to the unlawful and inhumane brutality he inflicted by calling the police. SUNY New Paltz is proceeding to charge students with trespassing on a public campus we live on, but more importantly, pay for. They are going beyond this and trying to pin undefined academic consequences on students, only beginning the process after the end of the semester. Anyone and everyone should call the president's office to demand them to fully drop these charges at 845-257-3260. 3. SUNY New Paltz must fully acknowledge the brutality inflicted upon its students by the police and the administration's responsibility in it. This institution cannot be allowed to sweep under the rug their decision to brutally repress us, nor frame this as a forced move by protesters who put this upon themselves. The tactics and training of our police force has a real connection to that of the IDF, and while the brutality we saw is not comparable with the experience by the Palestinians, SUNY must recognize this connection.
Continuing off of that, our demands toward liberation. These asks and new demands do not contradict our original demands, which are ultimately solidarity with Palestine. To reiterate, the demands that administration and the police attempted to suppress are as follows. 1. Commit to severing contracts, withdrawing investments, and ending all financial relationships with companies culpable for genocide in Gaza as named by the Palestinian Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions National Committee, including the immediate termination of Siemens contracts C991285 and OC42022. 2. Commit to an ongoing position of divestment and non-engagement with current and future companies named by the Palestinian BDS Committee. And 3. Commit to increased transparency and disclosure regarding New Paltz's donations, investments, and contracts. In addition, we want all financial dealings with private companies to be freely and publicly accessible via online search. In order to uphold this commitment to transparency, we ask that this information also be sent via email to all New Paltz students.
Do you have those in writing? Is that both sides? Both statements? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
When will we hear from you?
I need to digest this and make some phone calls, but in terms of today.
You will hear from us today.
You will hear from me.
Can you tell that to the camera? You will hear from it today. Thank you.
Okay.